If you drove past Route 9 on a rainy night, you wouldn't think twice about it. It's just a dark, lonely stretch of highway. But on this particular night, if you looked closely at the side of the road, you would see a car parked in the mud. The driver's side door is wide open. Rain is pouring inside. And on the front seat, there is a college textbook completely soaked. The hazard lights are blinking, but nobody is there. Now, if you saw this, you would probably think someone had a bad accident and ran to get help. But you would be wrong, because the real horror wasn't the crash. It was the man who was standing right next to that car just minutes before. His name is Raymond. To everyone in town, Raymond is just a nice, quiet mechanic. He fixes brakes, he changes oil. But Raymond had a secret. He spent months driving Route 9, mapping out the exact spots where cell phone service completely cuts out. And on this night, he didn't just find a car crash. Therefore, he created one. It all started a few hours earlier on a university campus. A 21-year-old student named Laura was finally finishing up her last class. It was pouring rain outside, a total storm. But Laura was in a great mood. She got into her car, turned on her favorite music, and started driving home. She was excited to see her parents and have a warm dinner. But Laura had no idea that the moment she turned her key in the ignition, a dark pickup truck started following her. It trailed her all the way from the campus parking lot, just staying a few cars back. Raymond was behind the wheel. He wasn't rushing. He was just waiting for her to hit that specific dead zone stretch of Route 9. Eventually, the road got dark. The houses disappeared. Suddenly, Laura looked in her rearview mirror. Two bright headlights were right on her bumper. Before she could even tap her brakes, the truck smashed into the back of her car. The impact was violent. Laura screamed, gripping the steering wheel as hard as she could. But the road was too slick. Her car spun completely out of control, slid off the asphalt, and slammed into the muddy ditch. She immediately grabbed her phone to call 911. But there was a problem. 0 bars, no service. She was completely cut off from the world. Then, through the heavy rain on her windshield, she saw the dark truck pull up right behind her. The headlights turned off. A man stepped out into the storm. He was wearing a clean mechanic's uniform, and he was holding a heavy flashlight. To Laura, sitting in the dark, he looked like an angel. But Raymond wasn't there to save her. When Laura finally opened her eyes, it was freezing. She was lying on a cold concrete floor inside what looked like an old, abandoned silo. The only light came from a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. It was flickering. Laura tried to move her arms, but she couldn't. Her wrists were tied tightly behind her back with thick plastic zip ties. They were cutting right into her skin. Her head was pounding with a terrible, sharp pain. And when she moved her shoulder up to touch her face, she felt wet, warm blood in her hair. That's when she remembered the crash. Suddenly, she looked up into the shadows. Sitting in a rusty folding chair, just a few feet away, was Raymond. He was still wearing his clean mechanic's uniform. He didn't look angry, he didn't look crazy. He just sat there, completely calm, staring at her. Then he spoke. His voice was totally flat, like a teacher giving a boring lecture. He said, "You're listening for a siren, aren't you? A police car, a truck, anyone." Laura panicked. She looked past him and noticed a small silver video camera sitting on a workbench. The little green light was blinking. He was recording her. Therefore, she completely broke. She screamed at the top of her lungs. "Help, please, someone help me." She screamed until her throat burned. But Raymond didn't move. He didn't jump up, and he didn't try to cover her mouth. He just sat there with this terrifying patience, waiting for her to get tired. Finally, Laura ran out of breath. Her screams turned into quiet, heavy crying. Dirt and tears were mixed all over her face. She looked at him and sobbed, "Who are you? What do you want with me?" To understand why Raymond was sitting in that chair, you have to look at his childhood. Growing up, Raymond didn't have friends. He didn't want them. While other kids played sports or video games, Raymond spent all his time alone in the woods behind his house. And he had a very dark hobby. He liked to hunt small animals, mostly squirrels. But he didn't just chase them. Raymond was incredibly smart, so he built complex traps to catch them alive. Then he would kill them in terrible ways. His father would watch him do this, and it absolutely terrified him. Because when Raymond looked at a living creature, there was no emotion in his eyes. He didn't see an animal. He saw a machine, and he liked to break machines. Eventually, Raymond grew up and went to the university just up the road. But going from the quiet woods to a crowded campus was too much for him. The big lecture halls and the thousands of students made him feel suffocated. He couldn't handle it. Therefore, he went back to what he knew best: hunting. He started treating the campus like his personal forest. He used his smart mind to stalk female students. He memorized their schedules. He tracked their walks. He became a shadow. But 2 years ago, he got caught. The university dean called him into the office and officially kicked him out. Now, normal people would feel ashamed. But Raymond, he just felt angry. He thought he was smarter than everyone else. So he decided if he couldn't hunt them on campus, he would find a place where they were completely helpless. Right after he got expelled, Raymond got a job as a local mechanic. The clean uniform was the perfect disguise. It made him look safe. It made him look helpful. Then he bought a big black pickup truck and went to work on Route 9. For a whole year, Raymond drove that highway in the middle of the night. He wasn't just driving, he was studying. He wrote down the exact times the police patrolled the area. He found every single blind spot where the highway cameras couldn't see. And most importantly, he tested his cell phone until he found the exact spots where the signal completely died. Route 9 became his laboratory. Deep in the woods off that highway, Raymond found an old, abandoned concrete silo. He made it his kingdom. The first time he targeted a girl 2 years ago, he made a lot of mistakes. It was messy. But Raymond looked at his mistakes like data. He fixed them. By the second girl, a year later, he figured out how to make them completely lose track of time inside those concrete walls. By the third girl 6 months ago, his plan was perfect. He learned to wait for heavy rainstorms. Why? Because the rain would wash away his tire tracks and erase his footsteps. He was totally confident that he had created the perfect crime. But he didn't know that Laura was about to change everything. Raymond didn't go all the way up the stairs. Instead, he stopped halfway up. There was a heavy, rusted metal locker bolted into the concrete wall. He opened a loud padlock and pulled out 2 things: a thick leather journal and a black plastic case. He walked back down into the light, dragged his chair right in front of Laura, and sat down. He leaned in and whispered, "You want to know what happens when your time runs out, Laura?" Then a creepy smile broke across his face. He said, "Let me show you what is left of the girls who sat exactly where you are sitting." He popped open the plastic case. Inside were personal trophies from his past victims. He reached in and pulled out a heavy, blood-stained rock. Attached to it was a lock of hair tied with a silver lanyard. Raymond looked at it and said, "The first one 2 years ago. I didn't know what I was doing yet." He explained that he used cheap rope to tie her up. But she was smart, and she actually chewed through it. Raymond said, "When I came down those stairs and saw her trying to crawl away, I lost my mind." He didn't have a weapon. Therefore, he grabbed that heavy rock from the floor, and he beat her with it until she stopped moving. He told Laura that the sound of her skull breaking echoed inside the silo for days. Laura was so horrified that she began to gag. She tried to turn her head away, but Raymond reached out, grabbed her jaw with his rough, dirty hand, and forced her eyes open. Then he opened the leather journal. Inside, there were disturbing photographs. He pointed at a picture of a pale, bruised girl and said, "The second one taught me how to break them." He didn't hit this girl. Instead, he left her in total darkness for 4 days with no food and no water. She got so thirsty, she had to lick her own sweat off the pipes just to survive. By the 5th night, she was begging him to end her life. So Raymond took a rag, soaked it in chemicals from his mechanic garage, and held it over her face. He sat there and timed it. It took exactly 6 minutes for her lungs to stop working. Next, Raymond reached into the case and pulled out a rusted pair of heavy wire cutters. He gently placed them right on Laura's lap. He said, "And the third one," she tried to fight back, "she actually bit my hand." So before he killed her, he used those wire cutters to clip off 3 of her fingers while she was wide awake, just to punish her. Then he choked her with a thick garage wire and buried her deep in the mud. Suddenly, Raymond slammed the journal shut. It sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. He leaned in so close that Laura could smell the old oil and metal on his clothes. He looked right into her eyes and said, "You are number 4, Laura, and your clock is officially ticking." Inside the police station, Detective Marcus Vance was leaning heavily against his desk. His eyes were bloodshot. He was running completely on fumes. Behind him, a massive board covered the wall. It was filled with photos of the 3 missing girls, all connected by a web of red string to a map of Route 9. Vance turned to his partner, Officer Cooper, and his voice was heavy with exhaustion. He said, "It's been 3 days, Cooper. Laura has been gone for 72 hours. Forensics had found absolutely nothing in her abandoned car. The heavy rain on the first night had washed all the fingerprints and tracks completely away." Vance looked at the map and said, "Based on what he did to the first 3 girls, we are running out of time. He doesn't keep them past the 3rd night. If we don't find her before the sun comes up, Laura is dead." Officer Cooper was sitting at a computer, frantically scrolling through highway traffic footage. Suddenly, his chair screeched as he leaned forward. He said, "Detective, look at this. I think I found something." Vance sighed and walked over. He said, "Cooper, we already looked at those videos. Thousands of cars drive on Route 9 every night. It's a needle in a haystack." "Right," Cooper said, pointing at the glowing screen. "But I didn't just look at the night Laura disappeared. I went back into the archives. I pulled the footage from the nights the first 3 girls went missing, too." Cooper focused entirely on the cameras placed right before and right after the cellular dead zones. He clicked a button, bringing up 4 different video clips on the screen. He said, "Look at the timestamps. Every single time a girl goes missing, this specific black pickup truck passes camera A right before the dead zone. But it never passes camera B, just 5 miles down the road. It just vanishes off the highway." Vance stared at the screen. All his fatigue instantly disappeared. The truck never passed camera B. Why? Therefore, it had to be turning off the highway onto one of the old dirt roads. The killer lived or worked right inside the dead zone itself. Vance barked, "Cooper, run that license plate. Tell me who owns that truck." Cooper's fingers flew across the keyboard. He shouted, "Got it. The truck is registered to a man named Raymond. And the address is listed at an old, abandoned concrete silo right off Route 9. Vance grabbed his tactical vest off the back of his chair. He looked at Cooper and said, "That's him. Call for backup and get the K-9 police dogs. We're moving right now." The freezing rain was still hammering down on Route 9. Suddenly, 3 unmarked police cars and 2 armored vans tore through the mud. Their headlights cut through the dark woods. They didn't use sirens. Detective Vance wanted the element of surprise. The vehicles skidded to a halt on the old dirt road, about 50 yards away from the big concrete silo. The doors flew open. A dozen tactical officers in heavy body armor poured out into the storm with their rifles raised. Officer Cooper was holding the leashes of 2 big German Shepherd police dogs. Their ears were pinned back. They were growling. They had the scent. Vance barked into his radio, "Cover the rear. Cooper, keep those dogs tight. If he runs into the woods, let them loose." Inside the silo, Raymond was standing by his workbench. He was calmly putting his leather journal into a plastic bag. He had no idea the police were outside. But then, a muffled sound pierced through the thick concrete walls. It was the distant, angry barking of the police dogs. And then, a faint voice came through a megaphone from the tree line. "Police, we have you surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Raymond froze at the top of the stairs. His head snapped toward the iron door. In an instant, his perfect plan was completely ruined. Panic twisted his face into something ugly. Therefore, he didn't try to run. He decided to finish the job. He grabbed a heavy, rusted iron tool, a tire iron from his workbench, and he started running down the steps to kill Laura before the police could get inside. Down below, Laura heard the dogs. She heard the shouting. A massive rush of adrenaline hit her body. It completely overrode 3 days of starvation and torture. She realized the police were right outside. But she also saw Raymond sprinting down the stairs with a weapon. This was her final window to survive. Using every single ounce of strength she had left, Laura leaned her body to the side. Her fingertips scraped against the edge of the workbench. She managed to hook her finger around a heavy flathead screwdriver that Raymond had left out. She dragged it until it clattered onto the floor right next to her hand. Working blindly behind her back, Laura jammed the flat metal blade directly into the plastic lock of the zip tie on her wrist. She twisted it with everything she had. The plastic broke, her right hand flew free. And at that exact second, Raymond stepped into the dim light of the flickering bulb, raising the heavy iron bar above his head. The heavy iron bar cut through the air as Raymond lunged forward. But Laura didn't hide this time. Driven by pure survival, she swung her free right hand blindly upward. She drove the flathead screwdriver deep into Raymond's thigh. Raymond let out a sharp yell. His leg buckled beneath him, and blood immediately started soaking through his clean mechanic's uniform. The tire iron dropped from his hand and clattered loudly across the concrete floor. He stumbled backward, clutching his leg. His eyes were wide with shock and fury. For the first time in 2 years, his perfect plan had failed. And at that exact second, a deafening explosion shook the entire silo. The heavy iron door at the top of the stairs was violently blown right off its hinges. "Police, get on the ground now." The narrow stairs instantly flooded with blinding flashlights and the fierce barking of the German shepherds. Raymond, bleeding and limping, scrambled backward into the shadows. He desperately reached into his pocket for a knife, but he was completely out of time. "Step away from her, hands behind your head." Detective Vance charged down the concrete steps with his gun raised, surrounded by tactical officers. Raymond froze. The bright flashlights completely exposed him. He realized his control was gone. Slowly, he raised his hands. The officers slammed him face first onto the damp concrete floor and clicked the steel handcuffs onto his wrists. Vance ran right past Raymond and dropped to his knees next to Laura. He pulled out a pocket knife and quickly sliced through the rest of the plastic zip ties, freeing her other hand. He wrapped a thick jacket around her shivering shoulders and whispered, "We got you, Laura. You're safe. It's over." Laura collapsed forward into Vance's arms. But as they carried her out, her eyes stayed fixed on the workbench. The small silver video camera was still running. The green light was still blinking steadily. But it wasn't recording another one of Raymond's trophies. Therefore, it captured the exact moment the nightmare of Route 9 finally came to an end.